All right, cool. So just like I did for Tekken, I'm going to do a Virtua Fighter overview. This will probably be just part one because there's a lot to Virtua Fighter, but kind of wanted to provide something a little more comprehensive than what's out there. Um, if you guys want to go like super deep dive, shout outs to Dandy J, who has the 3-hour VF tutorial, which is like the Bible. So a lot of this information is probably from that video, but I'll kind of try to sprinkle in what I can and try to summarize as much as possible without making this 3 hours of pain for you guys. So thanks for tuning in, and yeah, might as well get started. And I'm on the VF. I'm on like the Ultimate Showdown version of this game, but it's exactly the same. Everything's the same except the costumes. So everything I say here will apply to REVO. All the changes were made between both games. So yeah, let's jump into it. So first thing we're going to talk about is universal mechanics. Lots of universal mechanics in this game, but we'll start off with just regular buttons. Basically, Virtua Fighter is a 3-button game. Guard, punch, kick. Guard, punch, kick. That's all you got. Seems very simple at first, but you can string all these buttons together. You can do PPP, you can do PPPK, PPK. All these inputs are designed to be pretty mash friendly, where you can get into the game, push these buttons, they'll start some strings up. P will be your punches, K will be your kicks, guard will be guard, obviously. Guard can be held, and while you're holding guard, basically the mix-up is, either block high or block low. You can't move while you're in guard position. You can't jump. You can't do anything while you're holding guard. You can't even push the attack buttons while you're holding guard. So if I hold guard and push P, nothing comes out. If I push K, nothing comes out. This is really important. So just keep that in mind going forward. There's also combinations of these buttons, right? So guard plus punch is your throw animation. So typical throw, guard plus punch. You get this nice animation. Throws are 10 frames. Let's see. You can also do guard plus kick, and that kind of gives you more of like a stronger, sometimes usually circular kick. So for Blaze, you get kind of this circular kick that turns people sideways. You can do it low. You can do it up forward, up back, all these sorts of things. But guard plus kick generally is like a stronger kick, right? And then you have P plus K, punch plus kick, which usually gives you some sort of like elbow or shoulder or some sort of thing. It varies per character, but a lot of times it's some sort of, stronger, slower button. A lot of launchers are locked behind P plus K. A lot of hit throws are locked behind P plus K. So just like a stronger sort of shoulder punch, headbutt, kind of upper body attack. And then the final combination of buttons is guard plus punch plus kick. And for a lot of characters, it's usually used as like a movement option. So there's lots of movement kind of moves that move you around in this game, and a lot of them are accessed with the guard push punch push kick input. Blaze kind of has this sort of stance he goes into if I just push it, but also if I push back or forward, I get rocket discharge, which is sort of a fast moving option. Everyone's different, but the inputs are similar, right? It's all different, but it's the same kind of, because everyone uses the buttons the same way. So you could jump on any character with these sorts of basic concepts and understand that like guard plus kick is going to give you a harder kick. Guard plus punch plus kick is going to give you some sort of weird movement option. For example, with Brad, he gets his sway options. With Shun, he gets his stances. So yeah, just play around with that and understand that that's kind of how VF works from a basic button perspective. Oh, another important thing to know is that guard also works as a guard cancel for certain buttons. So it depends on the character, but a lot of times you can cancel kick animation with guard if you push it quickly. Doesn't work for Blaze, but if I do PK with Blaze and guard cancel it, I'll cancel out the kick. So I know you guys see that. So it doesn't work for every character or every move, but a lot of characters you have will be able to guard cancel their kick or whatever. So a lot of times the application for that is if people are expecting you to do like a PK punish or something like that, you can just do PK guard cancel into a throw, catch them off guard, right? A lot of times to end the round, I'll do PK guard cancel into a low, So you can get really kind of tricky with this. Or you can just taunt, So a lot of times in a round, people will taunt. They'll do their guard cancel stuff and taunt. But either way, that's how that works. Good to know. And just remember, it's you can mostly just guard cancel kicks. So experiment with your characters, see what you can do. And if you see somebody doing some weird wiggling, it's probably because they're guard canceling their kicks. Cool. So standard moves. Let's start with punches. Standard punches. Most characters' punches are 12 frames. So 12 frame move, one of the fastest moves in the game. Everybody's going to have a 12 frame standing punch. Same properties, same like distance you move, same everything. The exception there is that some of the smaller characters, faster characters, have an 11 frame punch. So while Blaze is not considered one of the smaller characters, which I really wish he would have gotten his buff, but he didn't. Eileen, Kage, Leon, I think, all have 11 frame punches. So normally, someone's minus 12, you'd usually punish them with a PK, go into a mix-up, right? But with those characters that have 11 frame punches, you can punish minus 11 moves, which there aren't many, but you get the idea. Standing punch, normal, 12 frame execution. Most people have a crouching punch, 2P, as you will get familiar with as you play this game. Also 12 frames. Very useful move. Most characters have like an elbow, which is forward and punch, or 6P. Usually about 14 frames. And very standard move a lot of times. And the reason elbows are important is because they function as a frame trap. So we'll get into that a little bit later, but just so you know, it's very common for a character to have like a 14 framer mid elbow that will catch people if they're trying to crouch, or 2P or something like that. 3K is also really like a standard move. Down forward kick usually moves them forward a little bit, and this move is really good usually because it catches backdashes and causes a stagger state. So most characters will have this. It's down forward kick, and when you catch somebody backdashing, it'll cause a crumple. Let's see if I can do it. Here we go. So I set him to backdash. If I do this, crumple state. And I'll get a full combo from that. So 3K, very, very useful move, down forward kick for that, catching people backdashing. Other standard moves are guard plus kick, usually have some sort of circular move that will catch people sidestepping. That's across the board. That's just kind of how the game works. And then down G plus K, or down guard plus kick will also give you like a sweep. Same thing, usually circular sweep, but most characters will have some sort of sweep. So that's pretty normal. You notice there's a side turn state, which we'll go into later. That's like a whole other side of Virtua Fighter, which I really like, but we'll talk about that. But just so you know, those are sort of the universal mechanics in the game, universal buttons in the game. There's also like universal movement mechanics, which we'll go over in a little bit later. But as far as buttons go and movement mechanics from specific buttons, those are your standard buttons. Your stand jabs, your crouch jabs, those are stand P or 5P. Crouching punch or 2P, forward punch, which is 6P, 3K, which is your side kick, or down forward kick, your sweeps, and then your circulars, both accessed by kick plus guard. So like I said, it's not every character that has these, but for the most part, these are going to be, pretty standard across the cast. So you can start with these, work your way toward figuring out who has the coolest, circular for you or whatever. But you can just play around with these specific moves, and they are usually standardized per character. They're the fundamentals of the game. They'll get you through a lot of matches, and just good starting block for all these characters with 80 moves or whatever. Cool. So I went through that. Now I'd like to talk a little bit about highs, mids, and lows, and how those work. So, as you know, there's 3 buttons in the game, and Virtua Fighter's moves are accessed by, pushing directions in these buttons, or just mashing the buttons. So, if I do PPP, I'll get normal punches, high punches, all highs. You can see the highs. But if I do like forward punch, I'll get a mid. If I do down forward punch, I'll get a mid. If I do back punch, I'll get a different punch. If I do up punch, I'll get something different. So every direction kind of gives you a different move, and it's kind of intuitive, right? So the moves, if you're pushing forward and pushing punch at the same time, you're going to move forward. If you're pushing back and pushing punch or kick at the same time, you're going to get some sort of back move or back sway or spin move, back spin, all that kind of stuff. Very intuitive, I think, just the way the game is. Pushing down, you'll get lows. If you're pushing down forward, you'll get mids. Pushing down back, you get like more back sways and things like that. So just remember that it's pretty intuitive. Just remember to experiment with all your directions and see how your moves work. And a lot of times, even like pushing double tap forward punch will give you something even crazier. So I'll get like an even more aggressive moving forward. But you don't have a whole lot there's not a whole lot of like confusion, I think, as far as what input gives you what output. I think VF does a really good job of just giving you the kind of move you think you want, or the direction you kind of think you want to go with your character, just by letting you experiment with directions. So just highs, mids, and lows in general. So 3 types of basic moves in this game. There's highs, which you can see that it says high. There's mids, and there's lows. And so the properties of these are very similar to Tekken. Highs are can be blocked high, or they can be ducked. So if Brad is crouching, I'll get into EX moves at the end of this, but if Brad is crouching, all highs will whiff. So let me change Brad to crouch. Every high I have will whiff. Even my EX highs will whiff. But I'll explain what that is in a second. So keep that in mind. But if someone's crouching and blocking, mids will hit them. So you can't block mids while crouching. So I'm going to set him to crouch block. Oh my gosh, please block. Crouch guard. That will hit every time. And then And then you have lows, which can be crouch blocked. But lows will beat someone who's blocking high. Lows are very, very useful in this game. Very, very strong as round enders, very strong as moves that you're kind of guaranteed to hit. Coming from 2D fighters, coming from like Street Fighter and, you know, anime fighters, typically your overheads are your strongest buttons, like the round closers, the ones that people are going to end, because the default in Street Fighter is to kind of crouch block because it blocks most options. It's the opposite in Virtua Fighter. In Virtua Fighter, the default is to stand block because stand blocking beats most attack options. Also, lows do less damage. So while they're more guaranteed to hit, lows do less damage and they're much higher risk. If they get blocked, they're much more punishable, and it's balanced in that way. So you want to pick your lows wisely, but know that they're going to work if you need them in a jam. So yeah. So again, lows beat stand block, mids beat crouch block, and highs don't beat anything. Don't beat any blocking. Highs will just get blocked or crouched. So what are EX highs? What are EX mids? What are EX lows, do you ask? And we will talk about that right now. Just like in Tekken, we have EX highs, EX lows, and EX mids. I'm going to set the CPU to stand and not guard. So I know for a fact that Blaze has a few EX highs. One of them is this move. There it is, perfect. So you see it, EX high. He also has this move, which is another EX high. EX high, the definition is it's a move that hits high, but if somebody is in the process, if your opponent's in the process of pushing a button or in a recovery state or something like that, it will hit the opponent even if they're crouching. So normally a high wouldn't hit somebody who's crouching, but an EX high will hit somebody who's doing a move while crouching, like a 2P, for example. So let me show you what that looks like. If Brad is crouching, this move won't hit, right? Completely whiffs. But if Brad is doing a 2P, it will hit. So you see how that works? So normally this would whiff completely, right? But since it's EX high, it's a full punish. Same thing with this. If I do this back forward kick again, while he's doing the crashing punch, it'll hit. So EX highs are typically they're your low crushes. Typically they're the moves you're going to use to beat people who are doing 2P, which you'll see 2P a lot. Get used to seeing this button a lot. Cool. An EX low. What's an EX low, do you ask? So an EX low is basically, it's a low attack that can be stand blocked. That makes sense. So I'm going to set what's his name to block. There we go. Brad's blocking. So normally, like, my low kick will hit him if he's blocking high, right? Because he's blocking high. All 2Ps are EX lows. So you see that. And all EX low means is that even though it's a low, it has low properties, it can still be blocked standing up. And by low properties, what I mean is, for example, if somebody's throwing a high attack, a low will beat it. So let's say Brad is doing a punch, like a high punch or something. So let's say after I block, he does a punch. My 2P is going to beat it. It's going to whiff and beat it. So it's still a low. It still has the same properties as a low, as any other low I have, right? But I guess the devs decided that 2P is so strong they didn't want it to be a true low. And this has been a thing since like the beginning of VF time. So keep that in mind. What else? And then EX mids. I don't know if I have any EX mids, but I'll just explain how EX mid works. Is this EX mid? No. EX mid, all an EX mid is it's a mid that if they're crouch blocking, it will put them in a standing state. So it won't do any damage, but it will put them in a standing state. And I wish I had... Can somebody give me an example of a character with an EX mid so I can switch over to that? Akira down forward K plus G, perfect. Yeah, so I'll show you that real quick. All right, so we got Jackie crouching, crouch blocking. If I do a regular mid, he gets hit. But if I do down forward K plus G, you see how it says EX mid? All it does is puts him in standing position. A lot of times it gives you some sort of... And why would this be useful? A lot of times it will set him up for a follow-up move. So if they get hit by... So if they're crouching, crouch blocking, and you hit them with this, I'm pretty sure the rest is guaranteed with this move. There's lots of moves that kind of lead into other moves if they're crouch blocking. I don't know. It's not the most useful thing, but as you play more characters, you'll probably find a use for it. I think probably the biggest benefit of this EX mid standing people up is if they decide to do a movement afterward or an action afterward, they're kind of locked into doing standing actions. So if they want a 2P afterward, it's delayed. Okay, cool. So last part of this whole high, mid, low conversation is that pretty standard, but highs, as you know, get beat by crouch. But crouching moves also usually beat highs. So 2P, any sort of sweeps, if you're getting bombarded by highs, pretty normal to just beat it with a low attack. That's pretty standard. There are also moves in the game that crush highs and crush lows. You'll have to figure out what it is for each character. But for example, I showed you earlier that most EX highs and what L blazes moves that beat lows. Typically, it's either like a mid that you jump in the air with, or some sort of EX high that'll beat a low. There are also certain moves that will just beat highs because they have evasive properties. We don't really call them high crushes and low crushes in VF. We call them like evasive moves. So let me show you an example. There it is. Yeah, so you see how I kind of duck out the way? It's obviously a really tough one to do, but you get the idea. It's an evasive move. It's a high crush. And for Blaze specifically, if this hits, I get a full combo. But I could even do like a sweep, right? I could even do like a low kick. I can 2P. All these are evasive moves. I even have like a back sway. That should work. Or not. Not really a high crush, it's more just an evasive move, but you get the idea. But this is a true high crush. And every character is going to have whatever high crushes and low crushes. Some characters have a lot more than others. For example, like Shun has a bunch. Who else has a bunch? Eileen has a bunch of high crushes and low crush stuff. A lot of the trickier characters, what's his name? Leifei. But yeah, you'll figure it out as you go. Just keep in mind that that's an option, and that when you get hit by something and you're trying to figure out what the hell happened, it might be because somebody had a high crush, low crush. I want to talk a little bit about frames. Well, not too much, because that's not like a beginner thing. But I'll talk about it a bit. So now you understand kind of how the buttons work and how all the different P plus K and the combinations of buttons and highs and lows and mids work, I want to talk a bit about frame data. So there aren't a lot of plus frames in this game. It's not really a game with just where it's designed for you to have an advantage and keep it. It's more a game where it's designed for you to swap back and forth. You're supposed to trade off your turns. There's a lot of trading. You're always in your face. You're always in someone else's face in this game, so it's a lot of like back and forth. It's your turn. Now it's my turn. Now it's your turn. Now it's my turn. So, but there are some universal mechanics here. Universally, stand jab is +2, I believe, for everybody. So you can always do a frame trap with stand jab. Very common to do jab, medium punch. So you have 2 frames of advantage here, and then you have your medium punch, which is 14 frames for blades specifically, and that will beat a 12 frame move. That's your basic frame trap. The reason this is important is because in VF the trades for buttons only happen if the 2 buttons have the same damage numbers. If there's a trade in VF with 2 attacks, the attack that does the most damage will win. So you've got 2 moves here. You got jab and you've got medium punch. Medium punch does more damage, right? If I have Brad do a punch after my punch, oh my gosh. Instead of trading, I'll beat it. It'll be a frame trap. So this is very common. A lot of times people will block one attack and then they'll push a button. So there you go. Other than that, like frames are all over the place. Another kind of standard frame thing is that lows are usually minus on hit, and that's on purpose because of the high risk high reward situation of lows. Lows are probably going to hit. They're really good at option if you're not spamming them, and just by nature of how strong they are, VF tends to make them minus. Minus on hit, maybe not punishable on hit, but if a low gets blocked, chances are it's very punishable on hit. But it's a lot harder to block lows in general, so just remember that. So let's talk about guarding a bit. We talked about all these buttons. I want to talk about guarding. So as mentioned earlier, when you're holding guard and you push other buttons, let me switch. It's really hard to like keep switching these display buttons, but here we go. So when you're holding guard, your options are limited. All you can do is crouch, but nothing else really is an option while you're guarding. And the reason this is important is because a lot of people in Virtua Fighter, and I'll probably do another video on this altogether, use this technique called fuzzy guarding, which we'll talk about a lot in probably another video. But for now, I just wanted to give you the concept of it so you'll have it in your arsenal. The idea about VF and being able to guard is if you tap down while you're guarding, the game will kind of auto guard lows. So it'll kind of lock into the guard and allow you to kind of block things even if you just kind of tap the button. So what a lot of VF players will do, instead of just holding guard to block everything, they'll periodically tap down just to catch any lows that might be coming out, especially at the end of a round, right? It does work, so you can try this. Another reason this is good, tapping down, is because a lot of times people are trying to end a round. Their low moves will come out pretty quickly, but their mids, their mids might take some time. So if you tap down and they do a mid instead, there is a good chance that you'll actually recover in time to block the mid, but not also be locked into the low. If that makes sense. So just something to practice and to think about while you're playing. It's not going to click immediately, but understand that what fuzzy guarding really is you're holding guard and you're tapping down, waiting for some sort of low to come out. And this will technically increase your percentage chance or probability chance of, blocking one or the other or both. There are exercises you can do and all types of stuff to practice all this, but I'm not going to go too far into depth with that. I'll make another video for fuzzy guarding and how to practice it. But in the meantime, just keep that in mind. It's a common thing. If you see high-level players, mid-level players doing this while they're guarding, now you understand why and what it's called. One thing I did forget to mention that I think is really important. I want to talk about the kind of the triangle system of attack, throw, guard in this game. So VF operates basically on a triangle system when it comes to what moves have priority or not. If someone's guarding, a throw will work. So stand guarding. If they're stand guarding, you can throw them, right? If they're standing and not guarding, you can also throw them. That's just the way it goes, right? If they're standing and doing absolutely nothing, you can throw them. But if they're standing and pushing a button, you can't throw them at all. So if they're in the frame one of their move, if they're in the startup of their move, or they're in their, if they're in any sort of animation or pushing any sort of button, throws won't work. So it's a true, triangle system. There's no exceptions. Well, there's one exception, but we'll talk about that later. But when it comes to regular throws, there are no exceptions when it comes to regular throws as far as what beats what. So true triangle system, right? Throw beats guard, attack beats throw, and guard beats attack. So remember that. It's not like Tekken where you can kind of interrupt people's attacks with a throw. It's not like Street Fighter where if you get a meaty throw, they can't attack you. If you knock somebody down and they wake up with a button, you can't throw them, no matter how much advantage you have. So keep that in mind. The exception is catch throws. So certain characters, the grapplers, have these moves called catch throws, which don't follow the same rules as regular throws. They're not breakable, and they tend to be a lot slower. Throws are 10 frames. Catch throws tend to be a little longer. For example, L-Blaze has Rocket Discharge. There's a throw from Rocket Discharge called, we just call it the hot dog throw. This will interrupt attacks, but it's balanced because it takes longer to come out. So that's the exception to the triangle rule, but I think it's balanced in a way that if someone goes for those catch throws, which are obviously going to work more effectively than a regular throw, they don't get as much damage or much reward. So keep that in mind. I think that's a really important thing to understand about VF, the fact that, if you're in a situation where you think someone's going to throw, you can just toss out your biggest, longest, most damaging launcher as a read, and you'll still get, you'll still win the trade because attacks beat throws. So you'll see it all the time now that I mentioned it. You'll see pros just wake up, biggest launcher they have, like because somebody tried to throw them on their wake up. It feels really good when you hit people with that. Cool. So Numpad notation, really important part of understanding how Virtua Fighter works. It's just like we use the anime notation, right? So we use down, we use forward, we use back. We talk about that sometimes, but it's a lot easier for us in this sort of 3D world to talk about things with a number pad. So maybe I'll toss a number pad on screen for you guys, but basically in a normal number pad with the numbers starting at the bottom, 1, 2, 3, starting at the bottom, and 7, 8, 9 at the top, we do it from the one player side. So if your character's on the left side of the screen, 6 will be forward, 4 will be back, 2 will be down, 8 will be up, right? Oh, even Yeah, so if I want to do 6P, that means forward P. If I want to do 4P, that means back P. I think the one that you guys will get used to hearing the most is 2P, which is down P. And then if I want to do up and punch, it's 8P. And then the diagonals also come into play, right? There's 3K, which is down forward kick. There's 1P, or 1K, or whatever. 1 is down back. 9 would be up forward. I think I have a 9 throw. And then up back would be 7. So I have like a cartwheel, up back cartwheel. All still very intuitive, right? Up forward, up back. So yeah, I just wanted to give you guys that before I move in too far to this, because you're going to start hearing me say 6P and 2P, and it'll be a lot easier to understand what the hell I'm talking about with that.